but actually quite obscure products are now purchased at a high enough frequency to make them viable niches to build a business around, certainly to the point where you can replace your income as a family.
Today, we're diving into the current state of dropshipping. So with so many changes happening in the e-commerce landscape right now, it's important to understand what's going on in the market right now so you can be as successful as possible. So Lewis, you've been at the forefront of these changes. So can you give us an overview of what is happening?
Absolutely, James. Yep, the dropshipping landscape is evolving rapidly out there. So more UK-based suppliers are now open to dropshipping than ever before and providing faster delivery times and better customer service, which is obviously music to our ears as well. But it wasn't like that when I first started. I certainly remember when I first started in e-commerce, finding those reliable UK suppliers was definitely a challenge. And actually, I wasn't even really looking for them at the time because I didn't realize the advantages of using them. And so I know when I first started, I was working with suppliers, and I would call some UK suppliers because I kind of started out thinking, okay, well, I'll just try locally then, and trying to explain the business model to them and trying to explain this concept of drop shipping and how they should consider working with us. And I could just send the products out directly for them. And, you know, I was probably targeting the complete wrong suppliers and saying the wrong things to them. And the word drop shipping just wasn't a term they were even that familiar with. So I ended up going down the international supplier route in China, and we'll talk about that later in the conversation. But that opened up a whole can of worms, which was very, very difficult and caused lots of complexity in my businesses. And so the landscape now, though, because that's the topic of this episode today, where are we at now with dropshipping, the current state, it's definitely changing. Suppliers I've noticed recently are way more open to it. They're way more familiar with it. They hear the term dropshipping and it means something to them. And it's not that negative association that it used to be with it. Many suppliers that we speak to now even already have dedicated dropshipping contracts or arrangements or agreements ready for you to sign as a retailer of theirs when you start partnering with them. And it's funny, like industries just evolve, and over time, the better selection actually makes it advantageous to enter that market later. I don't know if you remember when the like iPhone first came out, and it was like this big revelation, like the first computer smartphone. I know it wasn't the first smartphone, but like it was the first mainstream one, right? And the first time I jumped on the iPhone bandwagon was probably the iPhone 3GS. I was at uni, and I remember getting the iPhone 3GS, and it was just like, I felt like such an early adopter. Like no one else had one, and I was looking around, and we had all these. There were such primitive apps in the App Store. There was like an app by Carling, the beer brand, where you could like hold the phone, and it had like a beer in there, and then you could tip it up, and it would look like you were drinking it. It was literally like the extent of iPhone innovation at that time. And they had Tony Hawk's skateboarding app, which I spent many lectures playing. But they're very, very basic apps, basic games, right? But now, jump forward to where the industry is at now. You go into the App Store, look at the selection they have available now. From like state-of-the-art fitness apps that synchronize with fitness trackers and wearables that you have, to incredible games and like VR games and productivity apps and AI apps. Like the industry has evolved so much that you have so much more selection now. And the same is true with dropshipping. You know, yeah, sure, you could have started years ago back then, like the early adopter of the iPhone, but you would have been the one trying to convince suppliers on trialing the business model, on not having much selection of suppliers. And so it was tough. It was you trying to convince the world that it was a good idea. But now, when you know what to look for in suppliers and a niche, and you know exactly what to say to them, you can find suppliers everywhere. And the beauty of it is that many of them won't even need convincing for you to work with them, because they've already seen how successful dropshipping can be as a business model for some of their other retailers. And so you're kind of coming in and they already understand it. And they say, yeah, we do dropshipping. It works really well. It's successful. We have it set up. Like we have the facility. That wasn't the case a few years ago. So remember, you don't need 100% market share either, because if you're in the e-commerce industry, well, that industry is growing. Every year, more and more people buy stuff online. And so because online shopping is growing, you just need your slice of that ever-growing pie to replace your income. The same is true of niches as well. With more people shopping online, it means that even more niches are becoming viable as well. It used to be that actually you could only sell the really popular stuff online because it wasn't worthwhile building a business around really like niche products. But actually quite obscure products are now purchased at a high enough frequency to make them viable niches to build a business around, certainly to the point where you can replace your income as a family. And so I like to think we're doing our bit too in the education space, in that the quality of e-commerce education has definitely improved significantly as well compared to when I first started. I know that there were a few forums and courses around at the time, but we've put hundreds of hours of our time, my time, into developing a best-in-class training program and community. And there are now more resources, more in-depth courses, way better communities and groups of people available than ever before, helping those newcomers to the industry who decide today they're going to start dropshipping, avoid all of those pitfalls that they would have otherwise fallen into. So that's something that we really set out to do at Dropship Unlocked. We really try and help you take advantage of the new and emerging opportunities in e-commerce today so that you're building a solid and stable business that can serve you for many, many years to come. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose behind the Dropship Unlocked Masterclass, is for the years of business that we are generating for our members. And it's no doubt, I'm glad you touched on it already, that the market has matured so much since 3 years ago when I first got started, and even more so I know for a fact from when you first got into e-commerce. But what that means is that, as you say, so many more suppliers are open to it. They've already had dealings with successful dropshippers, and so they are more open and receptive to the idea of that business model working for them again. So it's up to us to then have the education, know what to say, know who to speak to, and we can capitalize on that opportunity. There's no doubt that it's moved so much from when I first started. I mean, the term dropshipping when I first got started was all about AliExpress. It was about getting products from overseas into the UK, expecting 3 or 4 week delivery time was the norm if you were going to be dropshipping products. And that shift has really moved now because we can domestically dropship from UK suppliers to UK customers, or if you're in the US suppliers, US customers, etc., etc. So that rise of UK suppliers is huge and very exciting for people that I believe are in these more developed countries ready to dropship to their customers with next day delivery.